Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular session of the Town Council. Today is July 23rd. If I could, with my colleagues, ask everybody to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay.
Council President Haley.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins.
Here.
Councilman DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Here.
Councilman Thiele.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Item number 4, if I could have a minute for the approval of the minutes of the July 9th work session and the July 9th regular session.
Motion to approve items 4A and B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing no oppositions. Item number 5, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So it carries. Moving on to item number 6A, which is a resolution granting a Class F1 19-hour beverage license to Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce for the Taste of Southern Rhode Island, which will be held on October 18th from 5 to 8 at Clark Farm on Commodore Perry Highway. And this application is submitted by Elizabeth Berman, who is here tonight.
Yes, hello. Thank you. So it's also for the following night as well. We did have to...
Maybe we can kind of incorporate them if they're both approved together, because...
It is for a very similar event. So the first night is the Taste of Southern Rhode Island, which I know a lot of you have been to in the past. But it's a great opportunity for our local restaurants, all of our spirit dealers as well, to showcase what they have going on, going into their slow season, heading into the winter. That's why we hold the event in October. So we're not inundating them when they're already busy with the tourists. So we are looking to promote them as they go into their slow season. So we are looking for a liquor license for that night. We're also adding a second night this year, which will be the first year we're doing so. So on night 2, we will have the band Sugar playing from 6 to 9 p.m., and there will be a cash bar and food trucks and that kind of stuff. So it should be a really great night.
Did I hear? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, did you add a second tent this year? Because I know last year it was...
Much bigger tent. So we're going from, last year was an 8,000 square foot tent. This year is 12,000 square feet. Yes. So we have increased the tent size quite a bit.
You're going to use a tent twice, which is awesome.
Yes. It is a very expensive tent. So this is our biggest fundraiser of the year, and we're just trying to use it for more than 3 hours.
Now, last year at the Taste, you had over 700 people?
Yes. Yeah, so we're expecting around 900 people this year for the Taste. We will have cops on duty, not only for security, but also for traffic. We also have valet to handle all of the people coming in.
How many do you anticipate for the second event?
We don't anticipate that much. It's the first year we're doing it, so we're not quite sure, but we are selling tickets, so we will have the ability to cut it off if we feel that it's getting too large. But we are anticipating probably 400 people on the second night.
Good. It's a good turnout.
Make a motion we approve items 6A and B as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
One recusal. I will recuse, as my wife is her partner in crime.
Yes, she is.
With a vote then of 4 as approving and 1 recusal, the motion does carry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck. Moving on to item number 7. A is a public hearing to consider a request for additional operational hours between 2 and 3 a.m. By Baked Kingstown Operations Insomnia Cookies on Fortin Road. Application by Megan Croswell. Is somebody here to speak on behalf?
Hi, my name is Brian Baker. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Insomnia Cookies. As far as our business, I spoke to this group a few weeks ago about our, I think, Vintner's license. Insomnia Cookies is is simple in its name. We deliver cookies, milk, and ice cream out of our locations, primarily on college campuses across the country, and we operate from 9 a.m. during the weekdays till 3 a.m., and on the weekends from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. We cater to college students primarily who are up late studying, playing video games, doing things of that. We also cater a lot to the community, aside from businesses during the day for offices, snacks, birthdays, but also to, first responders, fire departments, police, medical workers, people up working third shift. We're something different and unique that where else can you get a pint of ice cream delivered when you have insomnia and you're, up at 1 or 2 in the morning with, a pregnant wife or children or, things like that. So there's a lot of uniqueness in what we do. And we're just looking to be with our 135 locations across the country, being open till 3 a.m. We'd like to, ask for approval to continue that.
No pun intended, but your last name is very conducive to the...
Yeah, I get made fun of a lot in my company for the last name Baker and what I do, but yeah, I did not change it.
Now, just a quick question. Baked Kingston RI is just a local LLC that your
Correct.
company owns?
Correct. I actually have some sheets here that kind of our business summary for everyone to look at.
Actually, if you could give them to Dale, the town clerk.
You didn't bring any samples?
No, unfortunately, my closest oven is up in Providence or New Haven right now. So.
Any more questions here at the table?
On here.
No? Any questions from the public?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 7A.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you so
Best of
much.
luck to you.
Appreciate it.
Moving on to item 7B, which is a public hearing to consider an application requesting an amendment to the zoning map from rural residential low-density R80 to government and institutional GI for the property designated at 4640 Tower Hill Road. And this application is from the Prout School by the Roman Catholic Bishop of Providence. And you want to reference that first, please?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I have a communication dated June 27th, 2018, to the council from the South Kingstown Planning Board recommending approval of this application and incorporating findings of fact, consistency with the comprehensive plan, findings of fact, consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dave Estes. I'm the proud principal and head of school of the Proud School, and I'm joined by Sergio Terenzia, who is our lead engineer on a proposed project, which is why we're requesting the rezoning. So first of all, it is the most appropriate use, as was found by the planning board, and also it allows us to apply for proper variances when we're ready to present our plan.
What are you thinking of doing there exactly? I know it's going to be a field, turf, right?
Correct. If all goes well, and we do have one member from our steering committee for the project for fundraising, we would like a turf field with lights. Where we can situate the field would also require us to have a variance for setback for construction of the field, and we would need a variance for the lights as planned.
Plenty of seating? Or?
Your family will be welcome at all times. But yes, we would like to put in stands and make it something that first and foremost for the students at the Proud School, but would absolutely be open and available for any youth soccer or lacrosse leagues or something else that can use that size field. And so we think it would be an asset to South Kingstown.
Does anybody from the public, would they like to come up and speak to this? Okay. Any questions here at the table?
I have none.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye.
Motion to approve item 7B.
Second.
Could you add to that, Abe, that you are...
Recognizing the findings of the planning.
Yeah, that you want to adopt as your own the findings of consistency with comprehensive plan and the findings of consistent with zoning, all is set forth in the June 27th memo.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. Wish you the best.
Thank you very
Before
much.
you go any further, Rob is just pointing out something. We're supposed to add a use code.
Use code 20 is the educational use. Excuse me. Use code 20 is the educational use that the applicant has requested. It was not part of the findings of the planning board because it was part of the application and it didn't work into theirs. So the resolution, or the resolution should identify use code 20 as the educational use that's being...
So just amend your motion to include use code 20 educational uses.
So moved.
And seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you 3
Congratulations.
times.
Good luck.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to item,
Excuse me, just one thing, just a matter of housekeeping, we have some return receipts from the, you'll take those?
you're very welcome. Okay, moving on to item number 7C, which is another public hearing relative to an application from the South Kingstown Land Trust for funding in accordance with the Town of South Kingstown Open Space Funding Policy, and that said funding will be considered for potential purchase of approximately 43.3 acres of the Boy Scout property located at the intersection of Warden's Pond Road and Ministerial Road, Plat 61, Lot 1.
I have a list of emails in support and a list of letters in support, so if I may. Emails in support are from Leslie Berkery, Eileen Corey Sadasiv, Carolyn Griswold, Martha McBurney, Linda Taylor, David Gregg, Todd Helliwell, Robin Porthier, Emily Sorlian, Johanna Rakoskas, Patricia Crowley, Ann Malley Schaffner and Tim Schaffner, Karen and Ira Asher, H.D. Calicut, Beverly Hodgson, Helen and Tom Rowe Drake, Ronald Main, Melissa Campbell, Charles Coolidge, Scott and Lily Rippey, Cynthia DeMeo, Virginia Kenny, Carolyn Griswold again, and Carolyn Wilkel. Letters in support are from the Rhode Island Boy Scouts, the Salt Pond Coalition, the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, the Riley family, the King family, Kathleen Sullivan, Paul and Christine McDevitt, Mary Lee McDonough, and Clifford and Elaine Verducci.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Joanne Riccitelli with the South Kingstown Land Trust. I do the land protection work there. I've put together just a few slides to go through some of the important parts about this project. The land that we're talking about is outlined in blue. It's 43 acres. The north boundary is Warden's Pond Road. There's DEM land to the west of it. There's some Audubon land to the south of it, as well as private land. Across the road to the north is the Boy Scouts Camp Aquapog, and across the road to the east is Tuckertown Park that you guys own. So next, one of the really interesting things about this parcel is that there's lots of different natural resources. Often we come about a project that, is just about farmland, or it's just about forests, or it's just about wetlands. This one is just about almost everything. So there's drinking water protection that would be achieved. It's in a large forested block, as identified by the DEM State Wildlife Plan that they just did. It's in a rare species area that's identified by again, by DEM, the Natural Heritage Area program. There'd be, the southern part of the project is Alewife Brook, so there's wetlands across the southern boundary, and it's on Ministerial Road, which is a state scenic designated roadway. Although it's not currently farmed, it's got important agricultural soils, so it even hits the farmland, potential farmland button there. And then it's connected to other protected lands, so it would increase the benefits that are already provided by those protected lands and would connect a bunch of them, which is an important thing. And bigger really is better for open space protection, especially for wildlife corridors, for drinking water protection, and for forests, especially since this is part of a large unfragmented block. And then this is, next one of the largest remaining undeveloped parcels. It's in the top 50 if you look at those things, which we do. It's relatively large for what's left in town. It's 43 acres. As I mentioned, lots of different natural resource values and contiguous to other places. So the Audubon land is about 56 acres. Your park is 62. The DEM's boat launch is 7. And then Aquapog, even though it's not a legally protected property, it really is functionally not going to change, is our understanding, and that's almost 200 acres to the north. So this is in the middle of a lot of different pieces of protected land. And this was an unexpected opportunity for us. It's, we went through our what should we work on this year process in January. This was one of the things that came up, so we started a conversation with the Boy Scouts and found out that they actually had an unsolicited offer from someone else to buy it, and it wasn't yet written, so we said, well, can we talk to you too? And that led to a purchase and sales agreement, because our organizations have worked together on various things, and this was it just happened to be there. So it's really lucky that we even have the chance to do this. It could be developed into, I guess it is 17 house lots now, and having that kind of development in between all of that, 350 acres or so, would cause some fragmentation that would really impact some of the natural values, especially the forest area, drinking water protection. So that's something to consider. And even though we're out of cycle with DEM has every other year, they go to the state voters and say, can we have some more money to protect open space? And then in the 2 years between one and the next, they spend it all, and then they come back and say, can we have some more? And the voters always approve that, and we are out of cycle for that funding. We did apply when DEM had a grant round last October, and we did get a grant from them that we got in February, but the next grant round is until the middle of 2019 if we all vote for that bond that's coming up in November. So we're out of cycle with DEM, which is why I was really pleased to see that they were willing to put some money toward this project, even though we're out of cycle with them. The next is that our town and our voters have always really supported open space protection. It's an average of a 73% approval rating of the state open space bonds that come at us every 2 years because they spend it up that quickly. From 2004 to 2016 was the last one, and now we'll have one again in a couple of months. But there's been even higher support for town open space bonds, 77% approval in 2004 and an 80% approval rate in 2006. I'm not sure anything gets that kind of approval, certainly anymore. The 2006 bond, I believe, was for $3 million, and it has $2.3 million remaining, and this is now a 12-year-old bond, and our request is for $382,000 in total. And the town has really been helping us when we've asked for help on projects. Since that time, since the 2006, I just used that as a benchmark, there's been 7 projects that the town has helped fund for almost $2 million, and that was part of what our purchases total in that time frame was 17 purchases of almost $7 million. So that was a good chunk of what we worked on. We also received another 35 donations of land or easements. So it's been a busy 12 years. But part of the reason we haven't asked you for more funding for more projects is because we've been actually pretty good at going to state, federal, and private agencies to ask them for money first. And that's what we've done in the past. And this one's different because it's out of cycle with DEM, so we're coming a little earlier in the process than we normally would, but we also have a time frame that we are trying to honor with the Boy Scouts in terms of our purchase and sales agreement, so this was the time we had to do this. It wasn't, almost none of the projects we do are things that go exactly as we would plan them. Sometimes you just have to react to opportunities that are there, and this is one of those projects. And certainly, next one, please. We would plan to put trails on here some way or other. It could be self-contained, it could be a standalone. There's parking right next door, as you noticed with at the DEM boat ramp. I think what would be really lovely is if we could, I know that there are some trails at Tuckertown Park. If this was a way to increase sort of the passive recreation use of both your park and connect it into trails on this land, that would be a really great thing. The other thing we're thinking is, if you kind of squint and look at it funny, our Duval Trail is kind of on the lower part, southwesterly of this piece, but it squiggles all the way up almost to the Audubon land, which is just south of this land. And one of the ideas is to try to connect a trail on this property all the way down to Perryville, which would be really pretty cool. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So any questions? Or is it time for other people to testify?
I have some quick questions. On the first slide, you talked about protecting drinking water, but it came up with wellheads. What does that mean exactly?
That's a designation by the town, community wellhead protection areas. It's just a certain distance, and I'm not sure if there's a set distance or how it works exactly, but the area around which a community well is located to protect, that is in the town comp plan a higher level of importance for protecting drinking water. There are probably people on staff here that could explain that better.
And then secondly, you mentioned potential farmland. Are you saying that you would consider some agricultural farming on that property, or just that it has the soils that would be conducive for that?
Right. If it has good soil, so that's it's an opportunity in the future if that were needed. I wouldn't want to disturb it, but it does have good soil, so if there was a need down the line, it's just good to protect good soils while we can, because you don't know when you're going to need to grow your own food, kind of thing.
And one last question. In terms of fundraising with the Land Trust, a lot of your money comes from grants. Is there a percentage of money that you fundraise on your own for this type of acquisition?
Well, for acquisitions, we have to raise pretty much everything for every project, because any piece of land just costs so much for a little organization. It would dwarf it. Our land protection activity purchases dwarf our operating budget, hugely, usually. So we have to fundraise for each project we do. Sometimes there are obvious, for farmland projects in particular, there are obvious sources of funding. For forested projects, it's not quite as straightforward. We can't go to farmland preservation, even though they're good soils, they're not active farms, so we can't go to the farmland sources for funding. So that's why the DEM, it was really great that we got that grant from DEM.
But I guess my question was more so to the, I know grants are sometimes available, sometimes they're not, there's conditions, they sometimes dry up, et cetera. What I'm asking is more so on what does the Land Trust do to raise money other than that?
Other than grants?
Correct.
For purchases?
Correct.
Well, sometimes we do, direct appeal to landowners, to residents. We did that for the Whaley Farm, and we raised over $75,000 for that from individual donations, but that was a place where people knew it and go by it all the time
Right.
and know the farm stand, and this property doesn't have that kind of appeal, I don't think. There isn't a big neighborhood that would logically want to give money for it. I don't think private fundraising is really going to get us very far. There are a couple of private foundations that we're going to ask for money, assuming we get past this stage, that we don't know for sure that we'll get, but we hope we will. But, I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time, and there just aren't, and there used to be a Forest Legacy program that was run through DEM that was federally funded. There's no money in that anymore. I mean, there really aren't as many sources of funding as there used to be, which is, just makes our job that much harder.
And I'm assuming there's not as many individuals contributing.
Right, right. But it depends on what the project is. You know, for a project like Whaley Farm, which is just, everybody knows that place, it was much easier to raise money for. This wouldn't be so much. Although we are, I mean, the piece that we need to come up with is, in order to own a piece of land like this, we have to be able to steward it, and that's going to cost some money, and that's going to cost some money into the future. So we've got our own internal obligation of needing to raise $25,000 from individuals, largely. I don't think there's another option for that, to just to create the kind of the set-aside endowment fund to take care of this property forever. So we've got that nut to crack, the $25,000 that we're not asking anybody else for, that we just need to raise on our own to get to a point where we say, yes, we can take this property on and manage it adequately and take care of it, and we're going to need to put that chunk of money aside to do it. So we're going to have to raise that one privately.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I had a similar question kind of along those lines, and I just wanted to thank you for taking us out for the site visit, too. It's
Thanks for
beautiful
coming.
property, and it was a good day for it. A little humid, but... So, to Bryant's point, does the Land Trust, are you guys able to contribute financially to it in any other way than applying? I know it's very expensive and time-consuming to apply for grants and have the staff to do that, but financially, for this purchase, will you have any contribution towards the purchase price?
Towards the purchase price, no.
Okay.
No, we will have to raise the stewardship funds. They will have to pay me. But purchase price, we pretty much need to raise that for every project we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was interested in the list that you had of all the projects over the last 12 years, when you were just noting how much land you guys bought and how much you've done in the last 12 years. And traditionally, with the purchases of these properties, do you contribute financially, or is it mostly just grants and occasional private fundraising? Or
I can't, I think there might have been one project before I was working here where the Land Trust actually had some money to put into it, but I think that was from a private donor, so it was really just a pass-through. We really have to fundraise for everyone. I mean, I've raised over $12 million for buying land, and there's just no way we have that kind of money.
Right.
So, you know, if we were to decide, oh, let's just put all of the money we have into a project, we'd be gone next year. You know, we have to take care of all the land we have forever really seriously, and that's whatever endowment or whatever funds, investment funds we have are really geared toward making sure there is a land trust to keep taking care of this land, and then making sure we have money to pay people to go out and take care of it. So that's really where that money comes from, because there isn't all that much of it, and we really need more, actually.
yeah, and I hear you about the Whaley Farm. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't know Whaley Farm.
Right.
But I'm surprised that there hasn't been a lot of public interest on this, because, I mean, that's a pretty well-traveled road, and I know that the parks around it are very popular. So have you sort of felt out if there's public sort of input or interest in fundraising or protecting it, more so than what we've seen in the emails that we've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about most of those emails, so I was gratified to hear all those names. I mean, we probably could raise some money privately, maybe 25,000-ish, but the other thing is that we know that if we go to people every year to try to raise money for a project, we're going to wear them out, and last year with Whaley was a big one, and so we know we can't go back to people every year. It's just, the amounts of money we're looking for are just too large for most people to be able to, you know, to give. We're not in Newport or Little Compton.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This time, before I entertain any more questions from the table, I'd like to ask members of the audience to come up to the podium. If you have something to say, please state your name for the record.
Well, my name is Martha Stamp, and I live in South Kingstown. I would like to know if we have 32% of the land in South Kingstown protected, what are we protecting it from? Just a thought. You all look bewildered, but sometimes I wonder. Now that land that you're talking about, evidently it was gotten in 1958. I'm wondering if they couldn't pay the taxes, which were high then, but they certainly are now. But does anybody know what the estate wanted that farm or that property to stay as? Was it in perpetuity, or was it given to the Boy Scouts? I haven't been able to find too much information. And maybe you don't know either, because we've looked to try and find who owned that property and how did they want it saved. Now, I have no problem with the Boy Scouts. What I have a problem with is 400,000 or 382,000 taken away from the taxpayers. That's the problem I have, because it seems like every election cycle we have a reason to get more land paid for by taxpayers and put in the land trust. How much more do you think taxpayers can stomach out here? It's a big problem. It's not only in this town, it's all over. Now, we're a sanctuary city, or a sanctuary town. I fear that there'll be little farms out there, maybe when I'm dead, but I tell you what, I'm putting it to the public so they keep watch, because I have been around a long time. And I brought with me what happened to my family some 60 years ago, and we don't want to go into that. But the protected, this is what catches my eye, the 32% of South Kingstown that doesn't produce any taxes. That's a big problem, folks. Because I tell you what, all you guys have, and gals, have children, and you'd like them to stay here, right, Brian? And I know what has happened to my family. They're disappeared. And if I can leave anything with you, please try and help the taxpayers out here for a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Good evening. My name is Kevin McDonough. I'm a resident, voter, and taxpayer in South Kingstown. First, I want to thank the town manager and the members of the council who attended the site visit this afternoon. I appreciate your taking the time in your busy day to do that, and I'm hoping that it was beneficial. On the heels of the previous speaker, I think I'd like to address the issue of the taxpayer, because my initial thought was going to be regarding the voter, and the taxpayer in most instances are the same. When this bond, the $3 million local open space bond, was approved, the president was George Bush. It was prior to President Obama. 2006 was the year. And out of that $3 million, we've floated 700,000, so it leaves now 2.3 million, if my math is correct. And as Joanne stated, 80% of the voters, so to answer the previous speaker's question about the will of the taxpayer, 80% of the voters in this town voted in favor of allocating those funds for the preservation of open space. Now, in 2006, we may not have been at 32% of the land protected, but I'm sure we were over 20. We may have been 25. I think we could find that out. But I've encountered politicians in the past who have said to me, what is enough open space? And I think that's a decision the voters spoke clearly of when they voted 80% in favor of this. They obviously felt there was more to be done. There's more balance that's needed, and that's all we're asking for is balance. Balance between development and conservation. And 32%, when you factor that in, much of that is land that is protected through the state at the aquifer near Warden's Pond, and other parts that are, for example, the National Wildlife Refuge, et cetera. So it's not all the land trust, it's not all the town. But 32%, that number can be thrown around and used pro and con, but let's talk about what the potential of the remaining developable land in this town is, and what could happen to that, and what that would impact that would have on population growth and demand on our water supply and other services. I know that Town Manager Alfred was very sensitive to the demand on our town water supply, and controlling development was important and significant for that reason. And I think that this project, as Joanne mentioned, protects groundwater, the wellheads, et cetera, and also helps limit the development of 16 or 17 families demanding that additional water resource that is limited in this town. So I guess I'll just try to be as brief as I can be and say this. We have an overwhelming public that supported this bond. I am willing to bet that most of those people would think that the action that they took 12 years ago has already happened. They'd be shocked, I think, if they knew that the monies that were earmarked then hadn't been used yet, because I think they understand the urgency, the sense of urgency. And please don't misinterpret, I'm not saying that nothing has been done, because Joanne clearly pointed out that there has been cooperation by the town and the land trust. And one other thing I just wanted to say about that, Joanne inadvertently, I believe, said your park when referring to Tuckertown. It's not yours, it's all of ours. It's the citizens of South Kingstown, and unfortunately anyone else from out of town that wants to use it. And that's the same philosophy of the land trust. We don't check membership cards on our trails to make sure that you're a member before you use it. Our trails are open to everyone. And we are an asset to this community. We're an asset to the town government, I believe. We do some things now. Councilman DeCruz, you asked the question about ownership, saying that if we're going to put up that much money, we should perhaps own it as opposed to having the land trust on. But I think we've been an excellent steward of the lands that we've conserved in our 35-year history. I think we've been an excellent partner with the town and with the Nature Conservancy and other organizations. And I think our track record speaks for itself in that we're actually, as Joanne said, going to take on those responsibilities of managing the property and not put that burden on the town. So I think that's, you know, owning a conservation easement or holding the conservation easement is just as critical as outright fee simple ownership. I think the enforcement rights and everything to answer that point. So, but I thank you for your time and appreciate, you know, you listening, and I hope the will of the people will be heard. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Noreen Miguel. I'm a resident of South Kingstown, Rhode Island, and I thank you so much for your service to us as public servants of South Kingstown and helping us maintain this beautiful, beautiful place called South Kingstown, Rhode Island. And thank you to the town manager and everyone for their tireless service. I am a member of the Land Trust, and I can't emphasize enough how important saving open land is and open space, not only for us, not only for this current generation, but for future generations. And my heart goes out to the previous speaker, and indeed, it is tragic what has happened in the state of Rhode Island with the youth of Rhode Island fleeing and opportunities elsewhere. But our open spaces provide such a magnet for tourism. One of the things that you stated in your budget proposal for the 2018-2019 land use was specifically addressing open spaces and the importance of maintaining those open spaces, the historic nature of our beautiful rural town farmland, and also one of the interesting things that I thought was particularly poignant in a budget document was the health and well-being of the citizenry. And as a member of the South Kingstown Land Trust, I often take advantage of the trails. And I come across hundreds of people enjoying that open space. Additionally, we have so many people who come to our state and traveling down Route 1 or even coming down Ministerial Road. This is unique. This is not some 43-acre parcel unrelated to anything else. This is something that is, as we've learned, contiguous to things that are dear and precious. And I understand from my analysis of the 2018-2019 budget, while I'm not privy to all the details, what was made publicly known is that there are certain things that have been reserved, certain things that are earmarked, certain things that seem to me that there is a forward-looking component, and also a sense of stewardship. And I think that as I said, my heart and my soul is in South Kingstown. I love the Land Trust. I love coming down Ministerial Road when the Mountain Laurel are in bloom and the rhododendron are in bloom, and going by Warden's Pond. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about something that's abstract. We're not talking about something that doesn't belong to all of us. And to give that up to 16 families, that will put a burden on our properties, a burden on our land. Think of the sewage. Think of human beings. We're lovely people. We want to be in the world, but we are consumers. And having open space promotes health of the citizenship, promotes our future, and makes this such a beautiful and priceless commodity. And I hope you consider that in the long run. Thank you so much for your time and service.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tim McCandless. I'm with the Rhode Island Boy Scouts. And thank you for those of you who were able to come out and view the property earlier today. Just several months ago, we had received an unsolicited cash offer to sell this piece to a private developer, and we were on the verge of proceeding with that offer and had a vote scheduled that was coming up to most likely approve that offer, when in fact we were contacted by Joanne about a different consideration, a way that we could work with this land, which we became very excited about as the opportunity, because it is, as a couple of speakers have spoken about, it's the synergy of tying together all these pieces, plus our 193 acres, Camp Aquapog to the north of Warden's Pond Road, and all of that being tied together by this one piece, benefit everyone involved as well, then we're very excited about that and would like to support that in any way we can. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mark Archambault. I live in South Kingstown. And I'm here to talk about the other side. I think that we need to think more about affordable housing and the people who need it. I'm not upset when somebody puts in a new development, because many of us live in such locations. And based on the age of the people here, in our younger days, we were able to buy what we could afford and wanted, and that has changed a long time ago. Most, I believe, of the kids who graduated from SK need to get to Coventry, Warwick, West Warwick, to be able to get a house that's livable. I've seen that for 30 years. Most of you know I'm a realtor. I am not here because I want to sell more houses. I'm here because we have a housing problem that is huge. South Kingstown and the state, and in many cities around the country, are simply not letting enough houses to be built. It's the worst I've ever seen. And so what happens here, we're in a seller's market now. And we've had this before in early 80, early 90, particularly 80 was tough. This will come in a minute. We just need to have some empathy about the people who can't be here. And they have to have their own mortgages and be able to buy houses. So that's called workforce housing. I've been on the Affordable Housing Committee from the beginning, I think about 10 years. And when we started, just like the money that the Land Trust has gotten in the past, there was more money available. And there were a couple of elderly units that were built with federal money. When the recession came, all that was gone. So the support, I think there's less support for everything, for everybody. I think that the issue of whether a house is for sale is not one of the issues. The biggest issue we have in South Kingstown are rentals. Rentals apparently have been something that some of the town peoples just didn't want. And I think we need to be looking very carefully about adding more apartments that would help, and obviously some affordable ones. We have some new apartments in town whose rents start at $1,200 or $1,400 a month. It's not for everybody. Affordable housing would help people get into something that they wouldn't be able to do. So a single mom with one child or two can get some help with this program, but it has to be available. If there's nothing to rent, we can't put the thing together to get the affordable buildings built. It's a sad situation. And I think, and I understand, I've been a member of the Land Trust, I think from the beginning. I give them a check every year. They do a great job. I like open space. But I think the time has come to be more fair. And that is, I know everybody can use the open space. I think some of it, maybe not the Land Trust, but certain groups don't let anybody go on it. It's time to be fair, more fair for a different group of people who are having trouble. And I think, I've thought for the last few years that if the town was going to give money for open space, I'd like you to think about and decide no more money for for the land group unless there's some affordable housing attached to it. The problem for us with affordable housing is we don't have that big group behind us. And it's really very easy to say, let's have more open space, until your son or grandson or daughter can't move here. That's the empathy that people are feeling to try to help everybody. The last thing I'll say is, we're worried, I am worried, and so are other people, about our community. Do we want the community to stay like it is, where we have all kinds of people here, all part of the community? We know that already, and it's not bad, but there's a lot of people in houses that are second homes, and we can't just let it turn into a tourist town, because tourist towns, I don't think it'll happen, but it could, doesn't have any tire shops in the main street, because they've been offered so much money for their real estate, they sell, and I've seen that in various towns, particularly Key West. So I'm not against open space, but I think it has to be leveled off. And in case people don't know, that South Kingstown did give our committee some money in the last couple of years to try to help us to get something in here. But if you're going to do, maybe the grant that hasn't been used could go into our thing, affordable housing. Just think about making a change. If it isn't tonight, it needs to happen. And I know that 80%, I vote for that too. But there are other issues in the town that need to be dealt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Silversmith. I'm a resident of South Kingstown. I'm also now, as of a few months ago, a trustee for the South Kingstown Land Trust Board. But I did move to South Kingstown in 2009 from a much more urban area. And I will tell you that one of the reasons I came here was because of all of the open space, all of the open space. And so I do think that that is something I hear from a lot of people when they hear that I live in Wakefield. They're like, oh, it's beautiful down there. I do also run a family hiking group. I've done that for the last 9.5 years. It's called Rhode Island Families in Nature. Not trying to plug it, but just trying to say it's a real thing. And I do host, I guide hikes all over the state. And so what I find on my hikes that sometimes attract 50, 60, sometimes more than that, people, they're a lot of young families, and they go to places they haven't been before. They take a hike and then they go, for example, in South Kingstown, I tell them, hey, you should stop by Brickley's, or you should go into town. There's great places to get, some food or some lunch. So having open space here does attract people who want to move here, and it does bring people in to recreate and then bolster our economy in a way. And I will say that I think that this parcel of land is particularly exciting because of its proximity to Warden's Pond and to Tuckertown Park. Some of the preserved land is, a little bit more off the beaten path. And so I think that this could stand to have a lot of people coming from Tuckertown Park after, a soccer game or before that and checking it out. So I do think that it would get a lot of use. And I just wanted to underscore what the other folks who said in support of this parcel of land, that it's about the health of our whole community. It's about maintaining the integrity of our whole community. I also want to say that I am a very big proponent of affordable housing. This is, in my opinion, and I think in the Land Trust opinion, maybe you all agree, this is not necessarily where you'd want to put affordable housing. I think affordable housing needs to be in close proximity to services, close proximity to schools, and this is more, it's along a scenic route, and I think that you should take that into consideration. I am very much in support of open space, but I'm also very much in support of affordable housing, and I think the two things could live side by side. Thank you.
Hello, I'll speak nice and softly and slowly. My name is Meredith Arcaro. I live in South Kingstown. I heard many people that like open space. One person wants affordable housing. I'll talk to you, Brian. How much affordable housing is in South Kingstown?
Not a whole lot.
And what is affordable housing, the price?
There's a difference between, affordable and also affordable,
Yeah, I
two
know.
different things.
But I mean, some people are saying affordable housing. I wonder what affordable is in this town. I grew up in this town. I grew up in the city. I grew up in Narragansett. People come to this town for the open space. Since I've been here, a lot of plop, plop, plop. You know about that, right? Kind of, sort of? No? You might live in that little area that wasn't there when I was on
Oh, where
my
I live,
street?
right.
Okay. I'm just saying, this is a nice project. A lot of people can use it. It's open space. Affordable housing, if you want affordable housing, maybe Providence up there, Warwick. Affordable housing down here, he's talking about tourism. I think we've got lots of tourism. That's why people come down here and used to a long time ago to see the beaches, things like that. Do you think? Maybe? Kinda? Yes, no, maybe?
You asking?
So this is space for the Boy Scouts, and other people can use trails, things like that. Since I bought my house, that was affordable housing back in '92, 119.9. I don't think I could get a condo, a garage maybe for 119.9. It's affordable housing. But people come here to live here. It's a nice area. There's not much affordable housing. I think everybody in this room knows that. And people go to certain areas for affordable housing. That's life. People that live here love it, and people that bought here a long time ago, maybe somebody like off Tuckertown Road that's in the room. There's open space. When I lived on Bayfield Drive, there wasn't South County Hills 1, 2, 3. I used to walk my dog from my house all the way to Succotash Road. My taxes were $1,700, same house, $4,200.
That was all cornfields back then.
Maybe there were. There's a lot of cornfields at Whaley Farm. And there's a lot of land trust. Where's that?
On both sides over there.
On both sides, right? You didn't want a whole bunch of houses plopped there. Yes, no, maybe? Just my opinion, but for this meeting, how many people usually come? Meredith's always here. How many people usually? Look at all the people here that want something for the town that could be useful. People can use it. Affordable housing, 6 houses. Affordable housing, what's that? $275? Somebody gave an idea of a mother and a child. Where are they going to come up with that money? Just a thought.
Thank you. Before I ask Martha to come back up, because I know you've already spoken, if anybody else wants to speak, please come forward, and then Martha, you're welcome to come back to the podium for sure.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Recchia. I have been a resident since 1954, when my parents built here, because it is a beautiful place, and I still see it as that. South Kingstown is very special. It's so special to me that I was brought up in Cranston. My parents built a summer home in '54, the year of the hurricane, that I in turn moved here and built a home when my husband and I were married. We owned property on Commodore Perry Highway, 15 acres there. I return here to South Kingstown every year to my summer home, built in '54. It is dear to my heart. I am a property owner. I pay taxes. I'm here 4 months. I do not regret anything that this town has. I support it 100%, and it is expensive for me. But I'm here to support the Land Trust because I've seen it from its inception and what it has done. And believe me, I have a problem this evening asking myself, if the taxpayers, and my dad, by the way, voted for that, God bless his soul, he lived to be 100, and supported that. This goes back 12 years ago. It passed. I don't know why we're asking ourselves or how we can take a position other than to support what the 80% plus people indicated in this town. Who are we to change the position and the feelings of the people? I'm here to support that position. If I could vote right this minute, I would say, yes, indeed, that's our responsibility here. You certainly may change after, but to change what the people have already indicated, I don't know how any of us could leave this room and have a heart that can justify that. And I have traveled around and I have seen places that have had no control or investment in open space, and I can't tell you what has happened. I would never want to see that happen here in South Kingstown. And I have a home that's in a very dangerous area in our town. That's my choice. I understand that. But I will not give it up, and I will not sell it for anything. You have a big decision to make on the part of those of us who voted to have this. And I ask you, how can you vote anything other than to support? It can change from this point on the next time around. But my understanding is that there is money, there is support, it's been passed, you have people that have done research, there's an opportunity here for all of us to benefit. It's simple in my mind, unless I'm missing something. Thank you.
Hi, Julia Landstreet. I'm the Executive Director for the Land Trust, and I'm here just on a little bit of housekeeping based on some of your questions earlier for Joanne about our funding structure and the finances of the Land Trust. So we do our finances and keep our monies 100% separate from that which is for land protection and that which is for land stewardship. And one of my favorite euphemisms that we use in Land Trust world is perpetuity, which for most of us, even though I was really great at Wordly Wise, means forever. It's forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And so, for example, if somebody gave me, let's say, the Marble House, I would say, thank you, but you may have it back. Because within 15 minutes, one of my children would have, flushed the puppy down the toilet and stopped it all up, and then I would have not be able to fix it, or the roof would break, or whatever, and it's just the same with land. So Joanne Riccitelli, as she has shared with you all, has been quite successful at targeting funding sources and going out and raising the monies for our land protection projects. My task, and those who preceded me, raise all of the monies for the general operation, staffing, maintenance, stewardship, and to build an endowment so that we have the capacity to protect the lands forever. And it's two completely separate ways of looking at it. And in part, as you all know, because I was, actually you all don't know, but we were in front of the zoning board earlier because we're looking to do a capital campaign to raise significant funds for our stewardship fund so that we don't get the cart ahead of the horse and have more land than we're able to steward and take care of. And as you all well know, looking at the Parks and Rec Board, it costs money to have trails open to the public, to have somebody pick up the trash and cut back the trees and check the poison ivy. And so that is a service that the Land Trust provides. So what becomes a bit of a misnomer is that any of the funds that you have appropriated and gifted to the land trust, our pretty magical business model is that we then just take that and hand it to the property owner. We will receive no funds from the town. The monies that you give us will go directly to the Boy Scouts. And that was true for the monies for Whaley. That's true with every single dime we raise for land protection. We are just 100% a pass-through. So that was, if you have any other questions about sort of the business model piece, I'm more than happy to answer them, but thank you.
Now that you're here, I think you've heard some concerns raised, I mean, a lot of support for the project, which is great, but also concerns about affordable housing availability in the community, and I think the town is looking for partners to work with in terms of providing more affordable housing in South Kingstown. I would be hopeful that at some point the Land Trust can be involved in that whole discussion.
So I've met with Alice
Yes.
Buckley, and her office is happily across the street from ours, to sit and talk. In my past life, I ran a planning and visionary think tank in Nashville, Tennessee for land use. And so for me, it's just a very logical partnership in some way, shape, or form. I've offered her the use of our barn if she wanted to bring down a speaker that would speak to the issues. I mean, it's, in reference to this particular bond, it's just sort of a conflagration, but going forward, I don't know if that's a business model that we will embrace, but we certainly would help facilitate a better solution because, you know, without affordable housing, it doesn't matter.
We talked about this a little bit at the work session, and there could either be, Chelsea, please correct me if I'm wrong, 16 or 17 houses that could go on 16 acres of that property. But one of the things that was brought up is it would depend upon what the developer wants to do, because they're only required to have 20% of affordable houses on those 16 or 17 houses that could potentially go in there. So you're really talking only about maybe 2, 3 houses at best that would be deemed affordable. And I asked Chelsea, I guess the question I had about that is, what are the ramifications in terms of size requirements, whether they're on 10,000 square feet of land, or, I mean, that's right now, I mean, I've been up there, and it's not a high-density area at all. So I don't know if it would have a cluster look to it or not, or what the height requirements would be. I'm sure Chelsea knows all of that information. But I guess my question is, I want affordable housing in this town. But the fact is, if we bring a development into that area, we'll only have 2 houses that will be affordable.
And to use my analogy earlier, is it really affordable if you give someone of limited means a house that's more house than they can realistically sustain and maintain?
And I think we collectively, as a council and as a community, have to be very progressive in our approach in terms of affordable housing. There's no question about that.
Right. From the land trust's vantage point, though, I would say that what you are sacrificing to plop 16 houses in the middle of this pretty significant expanse of forest land, weighing your pros and cons, you're not really getting bang for the buck for the amount of destruction that you'll do to that habitat to end up with 2 single-family units that are affordable. I don't know that you have solved your bigger problem. And you, from my vantage point, you certainly have made a sacrifice that you will never be able to get back.
Meg, do you think that we could maybe at this time invite Chelsea up to sort of clarify some of the points that you made and to just explain a little bit about what you were talking about?
Hello, Chelsea Seifert, Planning Director. Do you want me to talk about the flexible design residential project model in general? So the Planning Board has a development mechanism at their disposal which would allow them to require any subdivision of a piece of property to be designed as a flexible design residential project. What that is a subdivision that sets aside a certain amount of land as conservation. Now, in this zone, which is R80, if the Planning Board chose to require development as a flexible design residential project, we sometimes call it an FDRP, 60% of the upland of the property would have to be conserved. So we did a general sort of look at the property using the GIS, the wetlands GIS layer, took out the wetlands, took out 60% of the upland, which is not wet, and it came out with approximately 14 acres, which could be developed, and you could have as many as 17 units there. So the question has come up as to whether, in which circumstances the Planning Board would not require an FDRP. And like I said in the work session, I have not yet seen that, especially when they know that there's a significant environmental resource to be protected. They would be more likely to require that mechanism. They also can, in the course of review of the FDRP, put conditions on the use of the open space. They could require that it be not managed by a homeowners association but given to the land trust. They could require that there be public trails. They could require open space management plans. Actually, they are in the regulation. They are supposed to require an open space management plan. So it's not just a buffer around 16 houses. It could be an actual resource according to the regulation.
Thank you for that.
Chelsea, while you're up here, we also have scoring metrics for these land conservation projects. Could you talk about the scoring in general and then how this particular project fared, perhaps in comparison to any others?
I can. I don't have that. I didn't bring my laptop with me, but
do your best.
There's 13 criteria, as I remember. They range from: is it next to something that's already conserved? Does it include farmland soils? Is it in a watershed protection area? Is it on a scenic roadway? So over those 13 or 14 criteria, the policy, the open space policy, says anything that's scores over 11 would be eligible for funding, and then it sort of sets it out for you to determine if you want to fund it. As I remember, it got 18 points in the scoring. That's actually impressive for me because I don't remember numbers. It got 18 out of a total of 24, I believe, points based on the scoring. And that scoring criteria doesn't leave much interpretation. So it actually says for this criteria, you're 1 point if this, you're 2 points if that. So it's pretty set in stone what those points are. There isn't a whole lot of interpretation by the planning department when we score those projects.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you.
Good evening. I didn't want Mark to be the only lonely housing advocate, so I'm Jonathan Daly Lavelle. One, I just want to commend. People know that I can be critical as well, but tonight I just want to commend that I'm hearing a lot of interest from our town council on the issue of housing, and it kind of has been avoided in years past, and so it just sitting, hearing it from myself with my own ears, that the sincere interest and really looking to work on that, thank you. So I don't know all the details. I haven't been following things as closely as I have in the past, but I am following to some extent. I don't know if there's actually been an analysis of that, the town success with the open space relative to other maybe communities in the state or even in the country compared to with the success that the town has with affordable housing. So I don't know if that's like a quick answer or not, but no. Okay, so yeah, I would say, I don't know if for this parcel in particular, but in general, before too much more goes on, I think that would be good to have that analysis, because, I know Mark's been involved for a very long time, and I think it goes back 12 or 14 years, and the scales really have not been balanced. And this isn't about the value of the land trust, and it's not about the value of the open space that we have, because everybody values the land trust and the people who have put in the time and have done so much really to preserve our community in a very nice way. But, I'm a realtor, Mark's a realtor, Brian's a realtor, and it's not about, I agree with Mark, it's not about having more houses, but maybe what it is we get the phone calls. And like to Mark's point about the rentals, like when you're in a real estate office and like somebody's calling in, what do you have for rentals? And, sometimes with trauma, you almost kind of laugh. And like, so that's like we don't laugh in actuality, but it's, in our mind, it's like, you're looking for a rental in South Kingstown? I mean, it just doesn't exist, and it's not affordable. So I think that's what the balance piece that Mark's talking about. I'm hearing some at the council. People can't afford to live here. And everybody loves this town. Everybody's here, we're invested in it, we love it. I love it, I love the farms. Matunic is such a beautiful section. The farms roll right down to the sea. I don't know, there's not too many places where that exists. I'm so happy that that's there, and it always will be there. But I'd like to think that someone like myself of modest means, and I do okay, I'm up and down and whatever, but I have more means than a lot of people, and I think about in 20, 30, 40 years, I probably won't be able to be here, and people who have less means than I have they're already pretty much out the door anyways, and like that just pulls at my heart. On a personal level, I hear it with the business. People they can't afford to live here if you just have regular money or less than regular money. So I'm encouraged to hear the focus. So one thing to kind of think about maybe, because there's affordable housing, right, like it's talking about with Bryant, like actually designated to be affordable, 5 or 6%. The state says it should be 10. But the larger issue is just what does housing cost? And there was the Affordable Housing Collaborative put a meeting together, whatever it was, last month at some point, and we live it. Houses under 300,000, under 250,000 in South Kingstown just don't exist, and they're tiny. You can't have a family there. So even if this piece or the next piece where it ends up with 16 houses, well, especially down Tuckertown, those are going to be, not all of them, but there's a very good chance that could just end up being another summer community. And so I think, the town needs to look at what different options are. I think there's no reason you can't have a deed restriction that those houses have to be owner-occupied, and, that's your primary residence. We're getting to the point as a society where maybe in some instances, and I know it's uncomfortable for some people, democracy and freedom and everything, but when you look at if people want it to preserve a place for just regular people, quote unquote, I hope people have grace with me, but just have regular people living in houses in these beautiful areas. I think there's something valuable there, and so the trees and it's all to the good, but I won't go on and on. It sounds like there's a recognition we need to find the balance. I don't know what to do about this piece, but hopefully partnerships can happen and people can look at things in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathleen Spencer. I'm a homeowner on Warden Pond Road, and we're talking about possibly two houses that could be affordable housing. I, as much as anybody else, believe that we do need more affordable housing, but we're going to have possibly 15 houses and maybe 2 to be affordable housing. And when you look at that map, when you look at that plot and see everything that is connected there, if we let the land trust do what they want to do, which I believe that they should be allowed to do, when you look at that map right there, that's an incredible boon for the public to have that area right there, all together. The trails, the birding, just being out in that area. I think those 2 other houses need to be somewhere else. I don't think this is the place for these houses to be. I think this is too important a plot of land. You've got to find some other place for these houses to go. I just, as a homeowner in the area, I hope that you see it to let the land trust do what they need to do to save what little really is left of the open space in the area. That's what I have to say.
Earth Linda. We have one more, and then Martha, you're next. Yes. Oh,
Martha, wait.
I was going to get up under the comments from registered, but from interested citizens. But this affordable thing, now, you know, you all know I was here at one of the meetings in June. And, you know, I remember this young lady in the planning department there, the head, where she said that 5 homes do not need a public comment. That's what I'm afraid of. You know, when I've lived for 81 years and all of my adult life, I couldn't trust the government. And now affordable. Now, I just bet that piece of property is going to be for seniors, because there's a lot of seniors that live up there in that, I can't think of it now, but you all know what I mean. Now, if, and I see he's here tonight, Jean, isn't that awful? My brain is like, the tax assessor is here. And for so many years, this is just a point, this can help a lot of us. Now, Charlestown goes up affordable to 42, from 22. They have to work somewhere, because they're gonna make 22, and they get a, 22 to 44. So I had a nice little conversation with the assessor. And I would like to see it go either 44 or higher, because for the last 10, 12 years, it's been at 36,000, where we get a little bit off of our taxes. Now, my late mother did get that, but it's been quite a while since she passed, and that 36 never changes. Now, one of you guys looks a little puzzled, but I think you know what it is, Abel. In other words, I'm looking for a little affordability from my taxes, so I can get a little benefit here after paying taxes all of my life here in Rhode Island. And if you can help us, those seniors like me, that at 81 I'm still working, I told you all that last time. I get health care, I don't get it off the government. They pay me a pretty good salary, I'm happy, and I get Social Security. So, speaking of Social Security, you gotta pay taxes on that. So I'm paying taxes on top of my taxes. So, that could help a lot of seniors out here that want to stay in their home and live the good life until they die. I hope I make it to 100, but who knows? Okay, if you can, if you can be fair, like somebody said, be fair to people like me that have been here all our lives, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha.
Jim O'Neill, The Tunic. Just a few housekeeping things that you could probably guess what I'm going to talk about. But first and foremost, we had 4 elections, 2000, 202, 204, 206, where the voters unanimously approved almost $6 million of bonds. We still have authorized, I believe, another $2 million. $2 million authorized for open space purchases, not for other means. We also have a share of the conveyance tax, which right now should be substantial for the year that we're in. I mean substantial. We could break the $500,000 mark if my numbers, I'm counting the $1 million homes, but I'll let the manager come up with that. But just to prove these statistics, I've got all the bond numbers, and I know you'll be bored with them, but just quickly, in 2000, 80% approval, and just to compare that with something, the town hall wanted $1 million to combine Route 1, police up here, planning, everything else. That was defeated, 47%. Does that tell you something? 80%. 2002, 78.13%. In 04, 78.34%. And let me give you a comparison what that was to. There was $2 million raised there. The community gymnasium, the first bond issue, they got 53%. In 06, 80.41%. That was the largest bond issue, $3 million. The gym, 51%, the community gym. The community gym on 3 votes averaged about 52%. But they won the 3 votes. We're happy it's up and it's working fine. But to also talk about that last $3 million issue, that was mainly for the 250 acres of the Noyes property on Route 138. And I remember working with Steve on that because we were worried that of the 130 homes that might have been built in there, we just used a fraction of that, 40 potential students. 40 potential students at a $20,000 bill today is $800,000. Times 20 years, $16 million. That $3 million bond, when it's finally done, will cost us about $4.5 million. So huge savings to taxpayers, monstrous savings to taxpayers. And this is a lot of what we're talking about tonight. Ministerial Road, that's really out of the area. Yes, do we need affordable housing? And I think the council is cognizant of that. We do. Infill, without question, infill. And without question, the council this year, I don't know what the timetable is, you can put forward also bond issues for affordable housing. Schools, capital improvements. Just in these 4 elections that I did between 2000 and 2006, there were 19 different bond issues. It's out there. My biggest question is about affordable housing. State of Rhode Island has raised, and I've got the prospectuses on them, almost $200 million over the last 8 years. I am hard-pressed to find where South Kingstown, or frankly South County, has gotten any share of that. And Martha brought up Charlestown, the 24 units over there. They used the Scandia oil spill money to build that. We don't seem to have any friends up in Providence with all that money that's been raised. So there are a lot of things here, but numbers don't lie. The only votes here, and I've got all the state votes, the only other votes to ever match open space in the state, which has always been the highest, or town down here, always the highest by far, have been the bonds for veterans. Veterans, Boy Scouts go hand in hand. Open space, the environment, there's no substitute about caring for these 2 issues. So hopefully you'll approve this request tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marion Goldsmith. I'm a resident of South Kingstown. I'm a homeowner and I'm a voter. I'm also a member of the Land Trust, a fairly silent member actually. It's my first visit to the town council meeting, and I've learned a lot. And I just want to say I came to support the initiative that they proposed because I thought it would be better to be here in person than send an email. And I want to reinforce all the positive things that people have said about that. I think the issue really is about how to spend that money, which has been sitting there for a while, and I can pretty sure that I voted for it. So I'm here as a specific voter in 2002 and 2006 and whenever. And I don't need to take more of your time, but thanks for your service and your patience.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Martha Day. I'm a member of the South Kingstown Land Trust and a real estate attorney in this town for about 30 years. I'm pleased to hear a lot of the comments tonight to indicate that affordable housing and land preservation are not mutually exclusive, and it's very, good to know that we're working in those directions. I've also reviewed the memorandum written by the town manager and seen that the real estate conveyance fund that you're talking about using for some of this purchase money, there's a portion of that that would be going toward the Affordable Housing Fund. So obviously there's trying to be some balance there in terms of where the funds are being spent. Given that, though, that means that there's approximately $200,000 that there isn't available from the Real Estate Conveyance Fund to go toward the purchase of this property. So with that in mind, we go back to the purpose of what the open space bond monies were allocated for, and just ask that you bear that in mind and you vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to come up and speak?
Hi, good evening. I'm Barbara Watts. I live in Kingston and a voter in South Kingstown. I'm also an ecologist, and so I'm very aware of the other value of open space that is to protecting watershed, and this is very close to beautiful Warden's Pond. And so just coming from my expertise on that, and I felt coming here would have more impact than writing you an email. So I hope you do support this proposal of the Land Trust. Also, I, as a volunteer, worked with the Land Trust when they were getting their national accreditation. That was an incredibly robust process of vetting our South Kingstown Land Trust. We should be very proud of that, and that it is nationally accredited. I think you can trust everything they tell you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say about all the open land there, people are talking about affordable housing. The ones they're saying, like the realtors, they're talking about affordable, the land trust, and then they say but, and they want affordable housing. I think a couple of you up there have lived there for a long time. Some of you haven't. Some of you live in expensive houses, not that it matters, then definitely not affordable housing. Section 8 people, there's a lot of that in this town. There's a long waiting list for Section 8. Affordable housing. Here's a piece of land. When's the last time you saw this many people in a town hall meeting? Wakefield School, you closed that, right? But you had a big bunch of people. Everybody's concerned about affordable housing. I think they're more concerned about land to use. They can use it, their kids can use it, maybe their kids and their kids can use it, right? For what, 6 houses, affordable housing? Look in the little brochure for South Kingstown. What's the median income? It's definitely, you could buy affordable housing. You put affordable housing on 110 up there, okay, so you got affordable housing. They don't make much money. How are they going to get around? They can't afford Uber. There's no buses out there. You're going to help with their transportation? You gave them a house, affordable housing? You know, I think the town speaks for itself tonight. And there's a lot more people. I mean, somebody sent an email with tons of people that weren't here tonight. There's people here that are swampers. They used to own the town. I wonder how they like all these people coming in from the city. I came from the city, but I lived down here too. And I lived in Narragansett too. Kind of like open land sometimes that's preserved. You got Tuckertown Park. You got a soccer field. Got a lot of land in that area, plenty of parking. What do you have, a field over in South County Hills? You can't use it because of the parking, maybe? It's like, I could say I want to open a business. I've seen plenty of people opening a business, and you always agree. I could open a business 2 weeks from today, Monday. I'll come up here and open a business, and you'll say yes, because you never say no. But open land, which can be used. All of you live in this town, I don't know for how long, but I could tell you for how long, because I know where you all live and how long you've been here, because I do a thing called research. But I don't know what I'm talking about, so.
Hello. I just wanted to make sure that people, I don't want everybody to think that affordable housing, the one woman who was a great speaker said she was concerned that they wouldn't be able to keep up their house. These are people who work. They have jobs. They're just like us. It's not Section 8. There's a lot of problems with that. We get phone calls at our office saying, I just got this Section 8 after waiting 3.5 years. And I have to say, I'm sorry, we have nothing like that. That's a different thing. This is workforce housing. And so don't worry about them. They're going to be able to keep their homes because the bank knows what they make and that they can afford to buy the house. So don't think of affordable housing as the lowest end with the people with the most troubles. These are people who just can't reach it now, and this affordable thing helps them. Now, there was discussion about affordable in the market. So realtors don't decide, okay, this year, the affordable price is going to be this. In that way, it's affordable to whoever wants to buy it. But affordable housing has some small amount of either federal, mostly federal help, and they get to do it based on how much money they make, based on how many children they have in the house, and depending on where they are, they're going to be told what's the top price they could purchase. Then they got to go to the bank and get it approved. So don't knock them down. Some people here probably know people who got help like that. You just don't know it. It could be your neighbor, it could be a relative, it could be a friend. It's a very important thing in this time of simply not enough homes. And I see more and more people walking on Main Street that I think must be sleeping on Main Street. That's the low end. And this system works. The state said over 10 years ago, 20% of each town, and we've been working at it, and right now we're at 5.2. And most of that 5.2 is counting the senior centers that were built here before the recession. And thank God for that, so that these people could go in these apartments and pay 30% of whatever money they're getting. We've been stuck at 5.2 for a long time. Every once in a while we lose one for different odd reasons, and we've been stuck for years. So I told everybody that I'm a member of the Land Trust. I just see disaster coming on this issue. And isn't it amazing? My last thing, the money that we get has to do with people selling their houses. But that money can't be used. the same way it's used for land trust. And I understand, it's easy to love the land trust, but like I said, empathy. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Troy West. I'm an architect and I'm an urban planner. I am totally in favor of that becoming open space. You don't put 2 or 3 affordable houses there. How are the people that are going to live there, how are they going to get around? We did a project, I think it was from 1998 to 2007, where we looked at Tower Hill Road. And we came up with a plan that basically said, Tower Hill Road, as you all know, is a complete disgrace and a disaster. It's the worst of 1950 urban planning that's ever been done. What we came up with was that we built housing, and we built offices, and we built businesses right on the main street, part of Tower Hill Road. The neat thing about that idea, and I worked with a lot of people, I worked with Abel, I worked with Jim O'Neill, and we came up with this idea that the businesses would pay their rent, the offices would pay their rent, and on top of those buildings, we would build affordable housing. And that housing, the land, would basically be the roofs, and that could be affordable. But the main thing about that is that that would be places where people who work hard and don't have a lot of money can walk to where they work, don't have to own a car, can actually have walking distance to everything they need. If you put 2 or 3 houses on this land, there's no way they're going to be able to get to where they need to get. So I am totally for all of that being open space. And let's have a little vision. And so that 2000 book, Maria Mack has a copy of it, and I've shown it to the planning director, but they don't seem very interested in it. I think that we have to start thinking beyond just, well, here's a unit here and here's a unit here. We need to really have a vision, and the vision is Tower Hill Road. It is waiting for something to happen. And if any of you are interested, we have a model in our office that shows it. We have a booklet that Maria Mack has. I think you should look at it. I think it should be brought back. Thanks.
Thank you. Just to speak to some of those concerns, I don't know, have you spoken to Troy, Chelsea, since? Okay. I do think a big part of this discussion is where the appropriate, you don't have to stay in there if you want, the appropriate place for siting affordable housing. This is clearly not adjacent to the services that you'd want to have adjacent to affordable housing, and I think you're right. But we are looking at Tower Hill Road, specifically with the money that we've designated to the affordable housing and for the study. I think we're in particular looking at that section of town. And so I do think we're going to have a long-range vision coming into focus. It's taking a lot longer, perhaps, than it should have, but we're getting there. And I think everybody on the council here is dedicated to providing more affordable housing in town. I think tonight our decision is really about what's the best use for this particular parcel of land given the needs of the whole community. And so I thank everybody for all their input on that subject. And Mark in particular, I think you know that we're all committed to affordable housing here. And I do think that we can use more of our real estate conveyance tax, split it evenly down the middle, honestly, between affordable housing and open space. I've suggested that a few times. We'll see if that somehow takes hold. Finally, I will say that we have bond funding available, but I think we've gotten recommendations from staff, and I think it makes much more sense not to use bonding for the sort of small sum that we're talking about to acquire this particular piece of land. And moreover, in regard to that, we used $200,000 out of the open space acquisition fund for the bike path, which is again not open space acquisition. So, and theoretically, maybe that should have come out of our unassigned fund balance. So we would probably not even be having this whole conversation if that $200,000 was still in the open space acquisition fund. And I would even suggest, I don't know, Trish, maybe you could speak to this. If we are sort of moving money around and it's all fungible, I would say that that $200,000 for the bike path is what should be coming out of the unassigned fund, and that this money should actually be coming from that fund, because it's designated for that purpose.
Either way, wherever the pot of money is, it's a commitment because it's our match with the DOH grant. And if you need more information on that, Terry can speak directly to that. But we have a commitment with the grant. So I spoke to the manager about the bond money. With the school improvements coming on down the line, in line with our 6-year capital plan, there is a plan to issue $2 million for capital improvements for the schools in the year 2021, I believe. We have $4 million authorized, unissued. We have slated in the capital plan $2 million in 2021, and I believe $2 million in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. If it is the desire of the council to use the open space authorized unissued bonds, we can spend that now out of the unassigned fund balance, issue the bonds when we're slated to issue in 2021 or 2023, and reimburse the general fund's unassigned fund balance for that appropriation. But so we wouldn't have to incur soft costs now for a small amount. We would roll it all together in 2021.
Madam President, if I may, one of the things that I think it's important for the public and for the council to recognize is that balancing the issuance of bonds is something of a trick. You don't want to issue bonds for small sums of money because you're incurring fixed costs that you'd incur if you were issuing large sums of money. So what Trish is talking about right now is figuring out how to bundle this offering so that you're not incurring the cost for a $200,000 bond. There's also the issue of not bonding money that you've got authority for but have no use for at the time. We can't bond $3 million and sit on the $3 million. That's not an acceptable practice. So you've got to sort of schedule your bonding around when you anticipate projects are going to come up. And for open space acquisition, which is really sort of market-driven and catch-as-catch-can kind of activity, that's been hard. So it isn't that South Kingstown hasn't respected the interests of the voters in 2006. It's that that funding mechanism just isn't the smoothest way for the town to have contributed. And in fact, the town has contributed money for open space acquisition, not through the bond mechanism, probably, although I can't tell you because I wasn't here and I don't know the full history, but probably because of that smoothing of the bond mechanism issue. Is that?
I think also because we have this dedicated revenue stream that's been coming in for open space acquisition, we've been relying on that largely for funding.
Exactly. It's a reliable source. It's a fund that you don't have to sort of worry about fixed costs and going to the market and that kind of thing. That's correct.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Noreen McGill, just following up. Line item 490404, Open Space Reserve Fund, FYI 2017-2018, adopted $225,000. Also, I noted that in the operating fund, open space was $75,000. Can you care to elaborate with respect to those funds identified in the town budget?
Sure. The $225,000 is for the 2018 debt service obligation. As I discussed during the work session, historically, we have appropriated committed funds from real estate or open space reserve fund to offset the open space bonds that we have already issued. So for 2019, the debt service on open space bond is $392,000, for which we've committed $250,000 of realty transfer stamps to offset that. The net of that would come from the tax need, which is about $145,000. So if that commitment wasn't there, the total appropriation would be $392,000 for tax need. So, but what we've been appropriating through the 6-year capital plan is between $225,000 and $250,000 towards open space debt service.
And then the $75,000 in the budget represents contributions into the account, into the fund, so that if an opportunity arose, the money would be there for the acquisition.
Yeah, future acquisition, so over the 6-year period, it was $450,000. But to your question, we had the revenue, so there was no sense in us issuing debt if we had reserve money set aside for these purposes. So.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know it's late, and I don't want to take up a lot of time. I appreciate what you said about not bonding a small amount of money. I understand the economics of that. It makes a lot of sense. But I think that perhaps the Land Trust, Joanne, should have a communication with you to understand, because there are opportunities we could bring forward and get that on the table and get it used, the will of the voters, and get it done. Because what I don't understand tonight is conflating the two issues of this project and affordable housing. I just don't understand. Like, for example, when the Recreation Center bond, which Jim O'Neill pointed out, passed marginally at 52%, compared to an 80% bond for open space, that went through quickly and got allocated, it got floated, bonded, whatever you call that, and funds done, construction done. And I don't know, was there a lot of talk back and forth about taking that recreation money and putting it towards affordable housing? I mean, was there a lot of challenge then to that? I just don't really understand.
I think what's happening now is that affordable housing is becoming such a problem in our town. So I think it just happens to be timing as to why we're talking about it now. And I think it's a good thing in a way that we're talking about land, but we're also now talking about affordable housing. And some people understand it, you know, and in terms of it's really important, and I support the Land Trust, but at the same time, it's a balancing act. And like Abel said, we've been putting money aside through the real estate conveyance tax for open space, but not as much to study or, you know, try to deal with the affordable factor in our town. And one of the reasons I think it's become even more important is because we are dealing with what to do with our schools currently.
Right.
And our biggest problem with schools is the fact that we're at a 60-something% utilization rate, and that's because our population has been diminishing over the last number of years. So it creates a little bit of an issue, but I think that's why the affordable factor is becoming more prevalent today with this particular piece of land. But when you look at this piece of land, it is surrounded by other pieces of land that it would fit well with. Right. And I also feel that if the Land Trust wasn't even involved, that would probably fit more to market rate developing than to affordable developing based on its location.
Right.
But that being said, I mean, I think we need to have that discussion because we do have quite a bit of the town in conservation. I think we're left with maybe 30% of developable land that's out there, and about 30-something% has already been developed. There's been a lot of ideas that have come out of this meeting tonight, and I think we're all here to listen. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us support open space and the will of the voters, you know, back in 2006 or whatever other years the issues were done for the bond. I think the concern that we have also is the fact that we currently have 175,000 in that account, maybe another 25 coming in, what to do with the difference of that number and where it's going to come from.
I'd like the woman's suggestion about taking monies now and lumping it into that next bond and then paying it back, if that's feasible. But to your comment about schools, that issue's happening in Warwick as well, a city that's much larger than South Kingstown, obviously. But so it's a trend statewide, I think, that school-age population. I think there was just a national report about fertility rates in America being in decline, et cetera. So that's an issue that's happening everywhere. And I think to the people who have very passionate views about affordable housing, I think the discussion should be about affordable wage and affordable living, and it's really at a much higher level. That's beyond, I think, our realm, certainly. But so it's not just
Right, but then if you get into affordable wage, you're talking about economic development,
Exactly,
and it's
right.
all tied in together.
It is, absolutely. So it's a bigger picture is what I'm saying. I was just confused at how it got conflated. It seemed
Yeah.
like somehow the land...
There's a lot of issues like right now, because there's a lot of people that don't want Wakefield School closed, as an example.
Gotcha.
And if there was more affordable housing in downtown Wakefield, as an example, there'd be more students for that particular school.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam President, if I may, just one point that I would like to make sure folks are aware of. What I'm suggesting about the bond in 2006, that bond authorization, the town may bond monies for this purpose. It was less expensive for the town to fund those projects without going to the market and bonding it. So it's not that no money has been spent since 2006. It's just that not all of that money was on a credit card. So it's not that we didn't invest in open space in that period of time. Over the last 12 years, there have been projects that the town has, in fact, put money to. It just hasn't all come from that bond authority. We were given permission to go to the market and issue bonds. Some of the activity that could have been funded that way was funded differently because it was less expensive to do so.
Rob, I think in one of Joanne's slides, I'm sorry, I'll let you speak in just a second. I just wanted to point out in one of her slides it said in the last 12 years the town's contributed $1.8 million towards 7 projects. So to your point, there has been money spent towards conservation. It's not that we haven't spent it.
Exactly.
It's where it's coming from.
Just one statement. 80%.
Could just state your name for the record.
Of Fran Nichols. I live on Warden Pond Road for about 40 years. One statement. 80% of the voters voted for open land. 80% of the voters.
I sincerely apologize. How much, so the 12 years, 1.8 million has gone to open space. So in the last 12 years, how much has gone to the issue of housing?
Actually, I'm not sure that's a full accounting. That's the projects that the Land Trust has received participation from the town from. There have been other acquisitions during that period of time. I don't have that full account.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I was waiting until the end of the public hearing, but that was going to be my point is, I'm glad that this council decided to put $100,000 into the Affordable Housing Collaborative so they could get that study done. But I'd be interested to know how much we've invested in the same 12 years towards the Affordable Housing Collaborative and towards those initiatives. And can you imagine where we would be if we put $1.8 million towards incentives for thoughtful development? And I'm not talking about affordable housing like deed-restricted Section 8 housing. I'm talking about homes that are affordable, the workforce can live in, families can come here, people that can drive to town, people that have a car. We're not talking about families, this very specific vision of affordable housing and what that's going to look like in someone's backyard. And I know we're talking about 17 housing developments, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when is it going to be enough? How many pieces of land do we have that are this large that are available for development in South Kingstown? Because there's not many. We're 80 square miles, and over 30% of the land here is completely protected, which is wonderful, and we're very proud of that. But that's 30% of our land that can never have a house on it. And I think we talk about these numbers and why they relate to each other, and I don't see how they could not relate to each other. I mean, we're taking 43 acres offline that we can never do anything with ever again. And I think that that's wonderful, and I think the land is beautiful, and I loved walking through it today. But what I want more than that is my kids to be able to live here. I want my kids to be able to go to Wakefield School. I want the families that call me and tell me that they have to live in another town, but they want to send their kids to school here, they just can't afford to come here. I want them to be here. When we talk about our vision for this town, I have a vision of community and families coming here, young families that are going to contribute to our tax base and that are going to make our town flourish. And I just don't know that spending money towards these things anymore is feasible. We're in a crisis. I mean, a literal affordable housing crisis, not just in South Kingstown, in Rhode Island, in New England as a whole. And the two issues are so intertwined, I don't see how we can not talk about both of them. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your time up here.
Well, yeah, so I just, thank you very much. And so, in my brain, I'm sitting there saying, well, hey, you know what, it's all reasonable if there's 2.3 million allocated for open space, even though I'm looking for more housing that's affordable, it makes sense. But now when I hear, well, 2.3, but we've actually used at least 1.8. No. Huh?
You're confusing there.
Am I confusing it?
Different time period, too. So.
Yeah.
With the last 12 years or no?
I think that went back more than 12 years.
Okay.
The estimation.
I'm not sure it did, but it was 1.8 in spending, and then...
$3 million was the original bond issue in 2006. 1.8 has been contributed to projects that the Land Trust led.
Right.
And there were additional acquisitions that I just don't have data on. Noise farms.
In the last 12 years?
Yeah.
We spent a significant amount of bond money on the Noise Farm property, is that correct? That might account for all of this.
Beyond the data that we've got at the hearing, I think that it's not a good idea for us to try to reconstruct.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, I think, guesstimate here, 1.8 million has come probably from the real estate conveyance tax for land trust acquisitions, 700,000 for the Noise Farm.
In the last 12 years?
Bonding. So we're looking at 2.5 million out of, maybe the public expected us to spend that $3 million in the next few years. We've spent 2.5 million in that 12-year span out of the 3 million.
Okay. So to me, in my mind, and I could be wrong, but whatever pot it's coming from, if the town people said, spend 3 million on open space acquisition, and the town has spent 2.5 million, well, the town has lived up to its obligation based upon that vote. In my mind, people can disagree, that's fine.
Well, would you say that the remaining 500,000 doesn't exist, or would you say that it might come out of this
I don't know.
chunk of $180,000 or whatever?
I don't know. Yeah. So, with the analysis that I'm hoping will be looked at, I think it may be illuminative for everybody, this 30% that has been preserved over however many years it's been preserved, how many houses would have gone there? Because I know I hear different levels. Some people are tracking it a little bit more than others. I don't track it all, so I'm not being critical whatsoever, okay? But the affordable housing official is one thing, but it's really, and Mark is talking about that a lot, is the supply and demand. And so just basic economics, if we've taken that much supply offline, I think we really should know that before we go too much further with anything else. And then just the last little kernel I want to throw out there is, this piece is this gets to the elementary school issue. This piece is in the Matunic School District, and I'm hearing everybody, everybody, saying we got to preserve outlying land, and we got to put all the houses in town infill. So I'm asking town council, I'll do what I can too, but I'm asking town council, please communicate to the school committee. I think they didn't get the message. I think they're closing, if they're going to close a school, I think they missed the message of what town planning is. And so the town council should be communicating to the school committee members, all the public services, people are supposed to live in town, this is what I'm hearing. Wakefield School's in town. It's been there for over 100 years. Mattoon School is an outlying school, so we're going to develop Tower Hill Road, which does sounds fantastic, what Troy's bringing forward, and it really is exciting to hear it's being talked about and thought about. Well, those are in town. So now if there's kids living there, we're going to ship them down Route 1 to Mattoonic to go to school? Instead of being right here in our in-town, 100-year historic location? So I think the school committee, they really did get confused. I know I get confused a little bit of the time, but my level of confusion is nowhere near theirs, and if you guys can help them out, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. I'd like to just say one thing, if I could. I know Liz very poignantly had her opinion. I'm doing the balancing act here. I'm a mom. My husband and I have 2 grown children. One has had to move out of state to get a job and lives out of state. But I also have a 24-year-old son who has a very nice job. And he can't afford to buy a house in South Kingstown because he has a lot of college debt. Affordable housing would probably allow him the means to do that. So I'm so concerned about the affordable housing aspect because I'd love to have my children back here as well. So I want to think about this with my heart, but I have to think about it with my head. I can't sit here and represent my opinion. I have to represent the will of the voters. And when 80% of the voters voted for open land, I can't negate the voice of the people. I struggle with this. I certainly do, because I want affordable housing so much. But I also represent this town at large who voted for me to sit in this chair. And if 80% of the public wants open space, how can I take that away from the will of the people? And that's just my 2 cents.
I'm Linda Green, and my husband and I live in West Kingston, where we raised 3 daughters through the schools. They're in their 30s. 2 of them live in South Kingstown now. I've been a member of the Land Trust as soon as it formed. I grew up on the outskirts of the Bronx, where in my home, when somebody sneezed, the neighbors on both sides said, "God bless you." The thing I would like to talk about with this property, and knowing the other properties we have in the Land Trust, is we're providing affordable nature to anybody who's interested. There is no charge to go on our lands. We do not expect people to be members of our organization, although we would love to have them be that for sure. And as a matter of fact, last year the Land Trust hired a coastal fellow from URI, and one of the things she did was interview people who used the Yagu Pond Trail. And Joanne can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that over 80% of the people who used that trail were not members of the South Kingstown Land Trust. And that's a huge amount. When we provide open space opportunities here, it is for people to use our trails and enjoy our trails at no cost to them. They don't have to buy admission tickets. They don't have to buy fancy equipment. They get to go out and enjoy nature. Thank you very much.
I've just got a couple of comments. So I think the Land Trust is a great organization. I'm proud of what this and previous councils have done to contribute to the open space acquisitions in the past. My concerns are financial. So I could almost predict this day coming when we have a school burden on our budget that is now going to restrict what we can do for other wants and needs in the community. So, for example, in 2006, when this last bond was approved, our average cost per pupil was under $14,000, about $13,500. In 2018-19, it's closer to $21,000, over 50% higher. So the burden that I believe the school administration has put on our finances in total, globally, is starting to restrict, in my opinion, what we can do for other concerns and wants and needs in town. The other observation that I'll make is that somebody referenced the 2000, 2002, 2004, and 2006 bond referendums that passed by fairly wide margins. That was in a very good economy. 2007, we had a pretty severe economic downturn that some people have not recovered from yet. So, in my opinion, that our taxpayers are challenged to pay these increasingly higher taxes every year. And as far as the affordable section, the affordable part of this, I mean, I have 2 adult children who couldn't afford to stay here when they got through with college. They still live in Rhode Island, but they couldn't afford to stay in South Kingstown. The average cost of a home is too high, and then the tax burden coupled with that. So as much as I think what's been done up to this point is fantastic, I'm going to be challenged to support this based on the burden that the taxpayers currently have. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Anything heard at the table? With none, seeing none, I would need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Joe? You aye?
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve item 7C.
Any more discussion?
We need to have a motion.
Motion and a
We can have discussion, I think. Using the money from the unassigned fund balance, not the bond authorization money. Is that okay?
All right, so are we contemplating in that motion $382,000 from undesignated fund balance, leaving the 175 in the open space?
I mean, as I said before, I think it makes more sense to take the $200,000 for the bike path construction from unassigned fund balance and take, when that would put $200,000 back in this fund, the open space acquisition fund, which would then be used for this. But it's all fungible, so I don't, if that makes it needlessly complex.
So my understanding, and I'll let Trish correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we currently have in the open space acquisition account $175,000 that has accumulated because of the receipts from the conveyance tax.
It also says that we have $200,000 there committed, but not yet expended for the bike path.
The 175 is net of that. Net of that, we have
Correct,
175.
yes. So instead of taking the $200,000, as we're currently planning to do, from the open space acquisition fund, take that from the unassigned fund balance, because it's more appropriate. It doesn't, honestly, it's...
It's fungible.
Right, exactly. So...
Just have to make that part of your resolution because of the commitment based on GASB 54 policy. So once you commit funds, you have to make the motion to uncommit them and then recommit them to unassigned fund balance. That's become part of the motion, Mike.
And so I think you all understand what Trish is saying. We've already pledged the $200,000, so we can't undo that. What you're suggesting is that we move where it's coming from. So if part of your motion is to recommit the $200,000 to the bike path from the undesignated fund, and instead that's going to leave, as I understand, $375,000 then in the conveyance tax fund. And I also understand we're anticipating another 25 to come in. That would bring it up to 400, and that's going to fully cover the 386 or whatever,
82
that they're looking for. So Dale's got to get this. So I think what your motion is you want to approve public hearing item C,
Correct.
and the funding
In the amount of.
in the amount of $382,000. That funding to be taken from, is it called the conveyance fund? I don't know.
Open space acquisition.
Open space
The
acquisition.
Open Space Acquisition Fund, and the rest of that motion is that the $200,000 that was previously committed from the Open Space Acquisition Fund for the bike path match will now come from the undesignated fund balance. I think I've got that. Is that good?
So moved.
If you could just say, I move that.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
A second for discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second with discussion.
So, I have a few more comments. The undesignated fund balance, we keep our goal there for pretty specific purposes, for emergencies, shortfalls,
Unforeseen circumstances, anything,
Right.
it's,
and we're within our goal there. And the other thing that I'll say about that fund balance is that we know where it came from. And if we've got $200,000 in there that we don't need, I think we owe it to the taxpayer to either reduce next year taxes or however we do it. If we have money, if we have excess money, and I don't think we do, we're in the range of the goal. We're not near the top of that goal. I don't think we have an extra $200,000 in there, but if we do, we owe that to the taxpayers first. That's where it came from.
Any further discussion?
yeah, I just wanted to say that I like it when people come out to these meetings, whether I agree with people or not. Whenever we have a town hall meeting where there's a lot of people here, it's always great. And I think in the last year or so, we've had a lot of meetings where a lot of people have shown up. We've certainly, with the Wakefield School and the issues that we've had with the school department and the school committee, we've seen this room packed full of people. A few years ago, we had a problem with the washers and dryer units at Champaign Heights, and we had a lot of people here to talk about that and what was being done with the Housing Authority. We've had people come during budget hearings and talk about how elderly people can't afford to live here and the years that they wait on lists for housing. And I think we've had people come here and talk about how much they love Whaley Farm and how much they love the space that we've acquired and some of the things that we've done. And I certainly can agree with all of them. I mean, I think that what our town has done up to this point has just been remarkable, and I think it's part of our success and not completely failing in not attracting families to South Kingstown, but it's part of what brought a lot of people here. But we're running out of space. There's no place to put houses anymore. Any houses, affordable or not, there's no place to build them. If we keep putting off and saying, well, you know, we can only put so many units here and so many units there, there's no place where we're going to put a 100-house neighborhood that's going to solve all of our housing problems that we have. It has to start somewhere. And if we have these funds and the unassigned balance available to put towards this, well, I have a list of about a dozen things that I would love to put some of that money towards before I put it towards this. And I'm not saying it's not a worthy project, but I think we've got some big issues before that need to be addressed. And I just can't get behind spending that much out of our unassigned balance for something like this right now.
Well, I would say that the town was given a mandate by an 80% margin to spend $3 million on open space acquisition. And the town has metrics for deciding what pieces of property are wise to spend that money on. This piece of property that we're looking at tonight scores very highly on that metric. It's contiguous with other parcels that are conserved, and it provides a great opportunity for not just members of our town, but tourists, what have you, to come and enjoy open space. So I think that's that's one piece of this puzzle. I think on the merits, this piece of land makes sense to preserve. I totally, wholeheartedly agree in increasing affordable housing in town, but there are appropriate places to do that. Infill development has been mentioned, and I think that's key, but when you talk about 32% of the town being developed already, that's not off the table entirely. We talk about redevelopment and increasing density in the portions of town that are already developed. That's how you get to 40,000 people in town, if that's what you want to see. It's not by encouraging more suburban sprawl into areas where there aren't services for people. I mean, I think affordable housing and land preservation are not mutually exclusive. And that's what we need to continue to focus on, both of those. You know, I think the character of the town, what people love about South Kingstown, clearly has a lot to do with the natural beauty of it. We want to have more people able to access that, to be able to live here and enjoy that. And we need to work on that. But tonight is not the hearing for that. And if you do want to use more money from our unassigned balance, I think that that's great. And if we want to use more money from the conveyance tax for affordable housing, which is something that I've advocated for years, then we should do that. But that is also not something that we're hearing tonight. Tonight, it's about this piece of land and what the community wants. And I think the community wants us to preserve it. So I'll be voting for it.
The only thing I want to add is, you know, you can have your own personal opinions, which I certainly do. But again, I wasn't voted into this position based on my personal position on certain items within the town. I was voted in to represent the voice of the people. And when I hear 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, the voters spoke to no matter who was on the council then, I don't care if whoever it was. They sent a clear message. And yes, we have a lot of land conservation, but you speak to people who move into this town or want to come down here and live here. And one of the things you constantly hear, the fields are beautiful. It's just such a beautiful rural town. And do I want to stop affordable housing? No way. I'll fight for it. But when 80% of the people of this town overwhelmingly say they're going to designate X number of dollars for conservancy of the land, I have to obey the wishes of the voters and the wishes of the taxpayers. So I will vote for this because I'm listening to the voice of the people. Whether it doesn't matter what my opinion is, it matters what the residents of this town want.
So I think everyone up here has made some very valid points and points that we should all listen to. I struggle with it as well because I think I brought up during the previous meeting we had regarding, you know, the affordable factor versus do we have enough land currently in open space. But I do think that the best use for this piece of land would be to preserve it, maybe with some conditions that we can talk about that everyone can agree upon. I am happy that we are talking about affordable housing because I think that we need to really focus on that as well. And, you know, Abel's point regarding how to split the real estate conveyance tax or maybe finding a different way to help that along in our town, either through different density requirements and fields. So I would support preserving this piece of land. The question is going to be where the best, or how can we best finance it, or where the money's going to come from in terms of this particular purchase. Because my concern is also the fact that we don't have the additional funds currently, and maybe your idea is a good idea by moving the funds and taking the $200,000 for the bike path out of the undesignated funds.
That, I believe, is the motion.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, Brian, what type of conditions were you thinking about?
No, I was just thinking, we had the, Rob had done the flow chart earlier. Can you pull that up?
There'll be an opportunity also when we get to the conservation easement, types of activities that you want to see or not see.
Correct.
We'll be able to work those in at that.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
then.
this, I'm not sure. Tonight, I think you're voting on whether or not you want to go forward with the purchase. We still have to agree on the conditions of the conservation easement. It's clearly going to have a conservation easement, but that's going to be developed later. You're going to have an opportunity to see that. And so I would suggest that those types of activities will be in the future.
Okay.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
I just have a quick question. If you're a member of the land trust, can you vote on this?
Who's a member of the land trust? Okay, are you an officer?
No.
No.
Just wanted to make sure.
You're just a member.
Correct.
I give to the land trust too.
Okay.
Even though I'm solicitor. As long as you're not an officer and you had nothing to do with bringing this proposal forward, you can vote, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-2. It is, item number 7C is approved for the Land Trust to move forward for the acquisition of the land on the Woodens Pond Ministerial Road area by a vote of 3-2.
Congratulations.
I'll just let the room settle for a minute before I move on.
Need more water down there.
Been waiting for a long time.
Comment, now, wait, what are we doing? Okay, now is the time that we are looking for comments from interested citizens. So, Mr. Brown, you've been patiently waiting.
Yeah, I just want to enjoy my land now. Last week, I called the animal control officer. Have a duck problem in the neighborhood. And they've been behind Benny's, they've been over the bank, they've been all over the place. On the 7th of July, it took me about a half an hour to get to my garage, because it took me that long to hose it off.
Oh.
She is getting rid of them tomorrow. She got a farmer to take them. But there was no ordinance in the town on farm animals to be penned. There was no ordinance. And I'm here tonight to ask you to look into starting and having an ordinance that people have to have fowl penned. Ducks don't know where they're going, chickens don't know where they're going, they just go. Dogs have to be confined to their property. I think two-legged animals, if I had an emu, could I let him loose? I don't know. According to the ordinance, I could.
I'm surprised that, there's no ordinance in place for that.
Yeah. I mean,
You almost expect people to,
Yeah.
they have that kind of, I mean, I have chickens.
every day, the ducks are in my yard, and you can shoo them out, you can run after them and chase them, they're gone. 5 minutes later, they're right back there.
Yeah, they don't care.
And fowl, it goes in one end and out the other, constantly.
Oh, I know.
It took me a half hour to get to my garage. I had to hose it, and you can't get it all off.
Oh.
I said, my problem is going tomorrow, but it's not to say it can't happen again. So, to me, there should be a town ordinance that regulates, most towns, I've looked it up on the internet, my daughter did. Most towns have it, they have roosters ordinances if you're in a residential area. People get, you order 12 chickens, you order 8 chickens, you're gonna get a rooster with it. Unless you specify you don't want a rooster. But I'm just here tonight to ask you for your help in having an ordinance, that's just for me, but for anyone else that may have a problem, they call the animal control, there's no ordinance, so they just forget about it. And it takes away from the use of your property.
We actually, God, that was an issue, how many, 3 years ago now? 4 years ago? It was, you couldn't fit another person in these council chambers because they wanted it, and there was some people that wanted an ordinance on roosters. And that roosters, I forgot how it went, but yeah, the roosters
Well,
did win.
that was like a prohibition.
Yeah, we're talking about two different
They wanted to
things.
ban all kind of like fowl in town, but you shouldn't have to live in your home and have every day.
You're in a residence area, you don't expect to hear a rooster 10 hours a day in the summer. And you don't need a rooster to get eggs if you want, if you're raising your chicken for eggs. I've talked to people, you have to have a rooster because you don't get eggs. I said, you don't have to have a rooster to get eggs, you have to have a rooster to get fertilized eggs.
I can attest to that. So many people think that.
So,
It's crazy.
no, that's what I said, I can't believe that there's not an ordinance on the books on animals roaming. They're in the street, they're over,
Especially where you live, I mean.
What street are
you're
you
in the
on?
middle of town.
What street are you on?
Oak Street,
Street, he's right in the middle.
right behind Citizens Bank.
Yeah, I can hear, my kids go to the pediatrician over there, and I can hear a rooster when I go bring them in to that office building back there, so.
I'm across the street, the people next to it with a bedroom's it's gonna drive me crazy. But the ducks were another problem, believe me. It was a mess every day,
Ducks are messy.
18 of them
Oh, wow. God. Oh, that's, well,
in a row.
it's bad. I would really like to.
I thank you for your help.
Thank you.
No, thank you for waiting so long to comment. Anybody else from the public? Now is the time to come up and speak if you would like to.
If he has a duck problem, he should take care of it. He's a swabber. I used to work for his brother. He was captain of the police department on Route 1 years ago. But anyways, can I make a comment about my neighborhood at all? Or are we talking about special things?
It's public comment, so you can talk about whatever.
Public comments?
Yes.
My neighborhood's kind of your neighborhood in a little bit. Anyways, Jerry Brown Farm Road. You guys are going to repave it, correct?
It's coming up soon. It's
I think it's,
between now and the fall. It'll be.
Now in the fall, okay. How many speeding complaints do you get with the bumpy road now? You travel that road every day. How many speeding complaints do you think you're going to get when it repaves? I just have one comment about a house there. I'll tell you the address. I won't mention any names, just an address. It's on Jerry Brown Farm Road, at the corner of Jerry Brown Farm Road and Sleepy Hollow. You know that house, right?
I'm sure I've seen it.
Think you go by it every day, maybe. Anyways, those people, there was kind of a problem there for 2 months. I guess it was just my problem. But it's problems with my neighbors on my street, probably if I went door to door in South County Hills, those people, 2 months' work, I think the town manager knows because I complained to him about it. I complained to the police department about it, but didn't get anywhere with that. They had, machinery there for a long time, and a big lawn. They got a lot of weeds now. I love it. It's green, but it's weeds. $100,000 later. Anyways, when the machinery was there, a lot of people have been complaining. You don't see it because you're just going up and down the road. They had all kinds of diggers. They originally started with a landscaping company, so they made big bucks because they're landscapers. And they did a lot of dumping across the street from their house into that land right there. A lot of people have been complaining about it, emails, things of that sort. Maybe should the next town council meeting, I should bring in a piece of paper and have people sign it from the whole neighborhood. Just asking.
I'm sure that's something that you could do. I don't know if it's going to have to be a formal petition, but...
I think if you think there's illegal dumping happening, then...
Do I think?
If you know that there's illegal dumping...
Maybe I know, maybe I could take pictures, maybe it's not their land and they put it there.
That would be illegal.
Meredith's not just complaining, I'm here for a lot of people in my neighborhood that couldn't make it.
But I'd say that's more of a matter for law enforcement.
Law enforcement, do you think it's a matter for law enforcement or is it a civil problem maybe?
Either way, we'll look into it.
Yeah, well, they've sent some emails to certain places and you're going to look into it.
I know what you're talking about. I've been down there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You do.
I haven't seen those.
I don't live down there, but I go down there. My
Yeah, I know why you go
mother-in-law
down
lives
there.
down there.
I know who lives down there. I'm just making it a comment because a lot of people have complained, not just on my street, which was there first, but in South County Hills 1, 2, 3, because they see the stuff too. It's just a comment.
Anybody else? Questions or comments? Seeing none, let's move on to item 10, which is the email report. I don't know if we need to make a motion on that. Maybe we do, but... I'm sorry. Then we'll move on to the town manager's report, item number 11, from July 12th and 19th.
Run through this one pretty quick. We're late tonight. Items of particular note, the electric vehicle for the Building and Zoning Department is still under review, but I hear today that they have a quick mechanism. There's two that are on the state list, two vehicles that are on the state list, and they're just looking at those two vehicles and deciding. I will point out that the building inspector, or the building official, has had a number of calls on South County Common apartments. One of them is a significant concern, and we're looking into that. There was a structural failure of one of the outdoor staircases, and it could be a significant issue, so we've got our eye on that very close. The clerk's office is recruiting for poll workers for the September 12th election, the primary, and she's got signs up everywhere. If anyone out there would like to be a poll worker, they're looking for assistance. EMS is engaged in interviews. As you know, EMS has been somewhat chronically understaffed for the last several months, and they are doing interviews last week, Amy? Do you happen to know? It was either last week or is this week, so they're getting to resolution on that. South Road School is now in the town's custody and control. The school department is still clearing out the building. There's some materials that they haven't been able to get out, but we have the keys and we have a lease in place for the one-year term with the preschool, and that transition seems to be happening smoothly enough. Mike and I and Laurel from the library have a meeting tomorrow to talk with the property owner adjacent to the Peacedale Library parking lot. There's some interest in a discussion about whether the current situation is sustainable. That property along the line next to the parking lot has been land that we've been permitted to use, and that situation has been one that we've been dealing with for a long time. The property owner is not clear that that's the best way for us to continue dealing with parking up there, so we will have that conversation tomorrow. We have filed a complaint, or are filing a complaint this week, against the owner of the Kingston Emporium. They've done work on the public right-of-way that wasn't in conformity with the conditions that the planning board had put for the development of a parking lot, and the drainage, more importantly, that they've put in is not adequate and has flooded the public road and has created a condition up there that is not acceptable. So there is a complaint that is going to court this week.
It actually was filed today.
Okay, great. Big news out of public services. National Grid was down and spoke to John and his staff on Friday. National Grid will be coming through, and there'll be a lot more on this. There'll be a press release sometime fairly soon, but National Grid has noticed that the gypsy moth infestations over the last couple of years have done a real number on oak trees in South Kingstown and throughout Rhode Island. And there's just a lot of stone-dead trees along the public right-of-way. National Grid is worried, obviously, about their lines, and South Kingstown has agreed to allow National Grid to go through and take down the dead oak trees in along critical roads throughout South Kingstown. This is a tremendous service for us, because if we had to do this ourselves, it would be cost prohibitive. And that's the report for this week.
While we're talking about National Grid, are we taking any sort of stance on the rate hike? I know sometimes municipalities will testify at the Public Utilities Commission in opposition of rate hikes, but I just didn't know where we stood on that.
I have not spoken to John about whether or not we would have public testimony. I'd be very interested if this is something the council wants to have input on. I'd be happy to put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and we can decide whether we take a position. But I've not spoken to John, and we have no plans, as far as I know, to testify for or against the rate hike.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the timeline. I'm not sure when they're meeting or where they're at with that, but just, I don't know if he would even help. Historically, it doesn't seem to matter what people say at those hearings. It always gets approved.
But with the Suez water rate hike, we are a participant in that. We, along with Narragansett, we have hired an expert, and we are opposed to that rate hike.
Yeah, the 19% increase, it just seems preposterous. Every year it gets higher and higher. What are you going to do?
That's because the infrastructure is extremely unstable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Suez water situation is a little different because, in a sense, they're competitors. I mean, in a sense, our service is interrelated with their service. We're not an electric utility provider, and circumstances just very different.
Yeah.
You're on.
Unless you have other questions.
Thank you. I was just going to move on to appointments.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know if we have any appointments tonight.
I think there's a couple. I see Mark in the audience, and he has not replied to our queries. But would you like to be reappointed to the Affordable Housing Collaborative? Don't mean to put you on the spot here. Or yes, I do. Okay. We know now. That's good. We do have a reappointment to the Conservation Commission. I'll make a resolution to reappoint Ann Heffron. Yeah.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And
Any others?
I think those were the only people, that was the only person we know about for sure. We might want to put an advertisement in for that new opening on the Affordable Housing Collaborative, the library trustees, and we might want to reach out to Vanessa Panicia. She applied for a couple boards. Maybe she'd be interested in one of these openings. I don't know. Okay.
Good. Anything else? Moving on to new business. Item 14C is a resolution authorizing the tax assessor to abate taxes in the total amount of $19,697.48, and that was shown on request number 550.
Make a motion, we approve item 14C as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, motion carries. Moving on to item I is a resolution authorizing an award of contract to Peterson's Oil Service for the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel from July 1st, 2018 to April 30th, 2019. And this is based on the State of Rhode Island's Master Price Agreement, number 114, at the lowest daily rack prices published by the Oil Price Information Services, plus the increment of .0475 cents per gallon for gasoline and an increment of .06 cents a gallon on diesel fuel from April 1st to October 31st, and .0729 cents a gallon from November 1st, holy moly, to March 31st, and to further extend for up to 2 one-year term extensions based on the State of Rhode Island contract extensions for the period of July 1st, 2018 to April 30th, 2019. And this was sent to the town manager on July 18th, gasoline and diesel fuel recommendations. A motion or any discussion?
Motion to approve item 14I as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing no opposition. Moving on to item 15. This is an emergency authorization. This is a resolution authorizing the town manager at the request of South County Hospital or any state agency to execute all documents and take all steps necessary to and proper to allow the hospital to utilize Town Farm Ball Field as a temporary helipad site for the transportation of patients. The town council shall review any actions taken by the town manager at its next regular session or at any emergency session called for by the president of the town council if necessary.
Madam President, I apologize for this being an emergency authorization. It just came, the request came to us after the agenda was set on Thursday, which is the reason it's an emergency.
Thank you. I think I was aware that based on the strike at Rhode Island Hospital, it just seems prudent. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve item 15A is presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing no opposition, motion carries. Item 16 is, now is the time we will move into a closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1 to discuss matters pertaining to personnel. Robert Zarnatsky, Town Manager. Zarnatsky. Well, sorry about that.
We need a motion, right?
The statutory notice was given, right?
What's that?
So we needed a motion, right?
Yep.
Motion to move into closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A1 to discuss matters pertaining to personnel regarding Robert C. Zarnatsky, Town Manager.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Take your time.
here. I should not have changed.
I feel like I'm not going to be able to move when I get up. I've been sitting so long.
Want me to stay?
He has them. He was bringing them tonight. I would start laughing after that.